A first-grade teacher walks into her Pennsylvania classroom on a Tuesday morning in 1993, humming softly as she arranges colorful posters on the wall. She's wearing one of her signature Mickey Mouse shirts, the kind that makes 6-year-olds smile before they even say good morning. She's the kind of teacher kids remember forever. The one who stages water fights with the principal, decorates classroom pillars to look like tropical palm trees, and makes learning feel like the best kind of play. Everyone at Coolbaugh Learning Center loves Joanne Chambers. Ask any parent, any student, any fellow teacher, and they'll tell you the same thing: Joanne is special. But when she opens her desk drawer that morning, she finds a letter. And when she reads it, her hands start shaking so badly, she has to sit down. She reads it once, twice, 3 times. Her mind refuses to process what her eyes are seeing. The words are vile. Not just mean or insulting, these are sexual threats written in explicit, degrading language. Violent promises. Things so disturbing that when she takes the letter to the principal, his face goes pale as he reads. His hands tremble holding the paper. Someone is targeting Joanne Chambers. Someone wants to hurt her. Someone is watching her every single move. The question is, who? The answer will turn out to be more twisted than anyone, police, teachers, parents, or prosecutors could possibly imagine. Because this case will shatter everything people believe about trust, victimhood, and the kind of darkness that can hide behind the most innocent-looking face. Joanne Chambers is 41 years old in 1993, married with a 10-year-old son. She's been teaching for many years, and she's good at it. Not just good, beloved. She decorates her classroom pillars to look like palm trees. She makes reading fun. She's the teacher who gets down on the floor with the kids, who remembers their birthdays, who makes first grade feel like an adventure instead of work. The school where she works, Coolbaugh Learning Center, sounds like it might be some kind of tutoring business. But it's actually a public elementary school nestled in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains. It's a small school where everyone knows everyone, the kind of place where teachers become like family, which makes what's about to happen even more disturbing. That first letter is just the beginning. More arrive, one after another, each one worse than the last. The threats escalate from vague intimidation to specific, detailed violence. The language becomes more graphic, more violent, more intensely personal. But here's what makes these letters truly terrifying. Whoever is writing them knows things. Intimate, specific details about Joanne's life that shouldn't be public knowledge. When she arrives at school each morning, right down to the minute, where she parks her car in the faculty lot, what she keeps in her desk drawers, what routes she takes driving home through the winding Pocono mountain roads, what she wears, where she shops, what time her son gets out of school. This isn't random harassment from some distant stranger. This is someone who's been watching her, studying her, planning every detail. Think about that for a second. Imagine going to work every day knowing that someone is observing your every single move. Someone who hates you enough to spend time crafting these detailed, threatening messages. Someone who's close enough to know your exact routine, but hidden enough that you can't figure out who they are. Someone who knows where you're vulnerable. It's the kind of psychological torture that makes you question everything. Every colleague you pass in the hallway, every parent you talk to at pickup, every person you see in the grocery store parking lot. Items start disappearing from Joanne's desk. Personal photographs vanish. A whiskey bottle mysteriously appears in her drawer. Strange, because everyone knows Joanne doesn't drink. The invisible tormentor is moving through her world like a ghost, leaving calling cards that make it clear, I can get to you whenever I want. And then comes the incident, that changes everything. Joanne sits down at her desk one morning to begin teaching. She reaches under the desk to adjust her dress, and her fingers touch something warm and wet. The smell hits her a split second later. Human feces, deliberately placed where only she would discover it, where she'd have to touch it. She runs to the bathroom and vomits. Then she scrubs her hands until they're raw and bleeding. When she looks in the mirror, she doesn't recognize herself. The confident, joyful teacher is gone. In her place is someone who looks hunted, terrified, broken. Detective work in a small Pennsylvania town isn't like it is on TV. Police Chief Anthony Flugel and his team don't have fancy crime labs or unlimited resources. But they have something just as valuable. They know their community. They know the people. And they know something is very, very wrong at Coolbaugh Learning Center. When they spread the threatening letters across their desks and start analyzing them, patterns emerge. The handwriting suggests someone educated, someone articulate. But more importantly, the content reveals something crucial. One letter contains a mocking reference to the school superintendent as Colonel Klink, the bumbling commandant from the old TV show Hogan's Heroes. It's not a common insult. It's not something just anyone would think to use. It's an inside joke, a nickname used by someone who works at the school. And according to multiple teachers, there's only one person they've ever heard use that exact reference: Paula Nawrocki. Paula Nawrocki teaches first grade in the same hallway as Joanne Chambers. But you couldn't find two teachers more different if you tried. Where Joanne is warm and spontaneous, Paula is rigid and controlled. Where Joanne's classroom is colorful chaos filled with laughter, Paula's is orderly and quiet. Where Joanne gets down on the floor with her students, Paula maintains professional distance. Neither teaching style is wrong, they're just completely opposite. Paula has been teaching at the district for 18 years. 18 years of dedication, 18 years of service. And in all that time, she's watched younger teachers come in and get praised for being innovative and creative, while her own traditional, disciplined approach gets overlooked. When investigators start looking closely at Paula, they notice something interesting. She's the only staff member they can find who's ever used that Colonel Klink reference. That's significant. That's not a coincidence. They install hidden cameras around the school, and what those cameras capture is damning. The footage shows Paula entering Joanne's empty classroom. She walks directly to Joanne's desk, picks up her coffee cup, and takes it with her. When confronted, Paula has an explanation ready, almost too ready. She claims Joanne asked her to retrieve the cup during a conversation they had. But here's the problem. The surveillance footage tells a different story. It shows both women leaving the building together at the end of the day. Then, moments later, Paula returns alone. She doesn't walk casually. She moves with purpose, with intent. She goes straight to Joanne's classroom, takes the cup, and leaves. That's not someone doing a favor for a colleague. That's someone who doesn't want to be seen. The FBI gets involved. When the threats include potential violence and cross state lines, it becomes a federal matter. And the FBI doesn't mess around. They bring in their sophisticated polygraph equipment and their expert examiners who've been doing this for decades. Two women sit for polygraph tests: Joanne Chambers and Paula Nawrocki. One of them is lying. The machine will reveal which one. Paula goes first. The examiner attaches the sensors: blood pressure, heart rate, respiration, galvanic skin response. These machines don't actually detect lies. They detect stress. They detect the physiological response that most people have when they're being deceptive. The crucial question: did you write or send any of the threatening letters to Joanne Chambers? Paula's answer: no. The machine's response: massive spikes across every metric. Her blood pressure shoots up. Her breathing changes. Her skin conductivity goes haywire. In the examiner's professional opinion, Paula Nawrocki is being deceptive. She failed the polygraph test. Now, polygraph results aren't admissible in court. They're not considered reliable enough, but for investigators, it's another piece of the puzzle. Another reason to believe Paula is their suspect. Armed with a search warrant, investigators tear through Paula's home. They're looking for the typewriter that created those letters, the paper, the envelopes, any evidence that links her to the harassment campaign. They find nothing. The typewriter in Paula's home doesn't match the letters. The paper doesn't match. The envelopes don't match. Not a single piece of physical evidence connects Paula Nawrocki to the threatening letters. But investigators aren't deterred. They have circumstantial evidence. They have motive, professional jealousy between two very different teachers. They have the Colonel Klink reference. They have the failed polygraph. They have the suspicious coffee cup incident. In September 1994, Paula Nawrocki is arrested and charged with over 100 counts of harassment, stalking, and terroristic threats. The community is shocked. Paula has been a teacher in their district for 18 years. Sure, she's not as beloved as Joanne, but she's never caused problems, never been violent. This doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But the harassment against Joanne stops immediately after Paula's arrest. That's suspicious too, right? The letters stop the moment the suspect is in custody. That seems pretty definitive. Joanne transfers to a different school, hoping distance will help her feel safe again. But in fall 1994, a package arrives at her new location. It's wrapped in innocent pink paper, like a gift. When she opens it, she finds a Barbie doll inside. The doll's throat has been slashed. Its hair has been cut and styled to match Joanne's exactly. Same length, same style, even the same curl pattern. And most disturbing of all, the doll is dressed in fabric identical to one of Joanne's favorite outfits. Think about the level of obsession that requires. Someone cut and styled a doll's hair to perfectly match a real person. Someone obtained or recreated fabric from an actual outfit. Someone spent hours creating this threatening message. This isn't random. This is deeply, disturbingly personal. Then comes the highway incident. November 1994. Rain hammers down on the mountain roads as Joanne drives home from school. The roads in the Poconos are treacherous even in good weather. Narrow, winding, with steep drops and limited guardrails. In the rain, they're downright dangerous. Joanne notices headlights in her rearview mirror, following too close. When she speeds up, the car behind her speeds up. When she slows down, it slows down. When she takes a turn, it follows. Then the car pulls alongside her on a narrow stretch of road. Through the rain-streaked windows, Joanne looks over and sees a face she recognizes. Paula Nawrocki. And she looks enraged. Paula's car swerves into Joanne's. Metal screams against metal. Joanne fights for control, her tires skidding on the wet pavement. She careens toward the guardrail, the only thing between her and a potentially fatal drop down the mountainside. She manages to stop just inches from the edge. Her hands are shaking so badly she can barely hold the phone to call 911. She tells police that Paula Nawrocki just tried to end her life. Paula is arrested again. This time, the charges are even more serious. Attempted vehicular assault. If convicted on all charges, she's looking at 5 years in prison minimum. The case seems open and shut. Motive, opportunity, multiple incidents, eyewitness identification. Paula Nawrocki is going to prison. But Paula does something that will change everything. Paula hires a defense attorney named James Anderson and a private investigator. She spends $7,000, money she doesn't really have, on something that seems crazy to most people. She asks for DNA testing on the threatening letters. Think about what that means. Paula is betting everything on science. If her DNA is found on those letters, she goes to prison with no possibility of appeal. Game over. But if it's not found, maybe, just maybe, it will create reasonable doubt. Anderson tells the prosecutor about this plan. The prosecutor practically smiles. Perfect. They'll test Paula's DNA, it'll match, and they'll have ironclad forensic evidence. No more relying on circumstantial evidence and failed polygraphs. They'll have scientific proof. The letters are sent to Dr. Diane Lichtenwallner's forensic laboratory. The lab results. That changed everything. Dr. Lichtenwallner is an expert in forensic DNA analysis. She's been doing this work for years, and she approaches every case with the same meticulous attention to detail. She carefully steams the stamps off the threatening envelopes. This is delicate work. You can't just rip them off, or you'll destroy potential evidence. She collects epithelial cells from the dried saliva on the stamp adhesive. These cells contain DNA. The DNA is extracted, processed, and profiled. Under the microscope, genetic markers emerge like fingerprints of the human soul. The results come back, and they're devastating. But not for Paula Nawrocki. Paula's DNA doesn't match the saliva on the stamps, not even close. Neither does her husband's DNA, just in case he was somehow involved. Someone else licked those stamps. Someone the investigation has completely overlooked. The defense team starts digging deeper. What they find is disturbing. Anderson's private investigator uncovers Joanne's employment history. At her previous school district, she reported similar harassment. Threatening letters, mysterious incidents. She found feces on her chair there too. There were suspicious fires, burglaries, and in every case, Joanne was the victim. One incident maybe you could understand, but a pattern? That's suspicious. The defense team demands Joanne's DNA for comparison. When those results come back, the courtroom erupts. The DNA from the threatening letter stamps matches Joanne Chambers. The statistical probability is 1 in 14,925. The odds that someone else in the world has that exact DNA profile and also happened to lick those specific stamps is astronomically small. Joanne Chambers sent those letters to herself. The trial in January 1996 is explosive. The entire community shows up. Teachers from Coolbaugh Learning Center testify. At first, they support Joanne. They talk about how frightened she was, how they all suspected Paula, how Paula started acting nervous and jumpy around the time the incidents began. The jury initially feels sympathetic toward Joanne. One juror later told Dateline NBC, "I felt so bad for this woman, this poor thing, to have had to go through all these terrible things." But then the defense presents its case. Joanne takes the witness stand. She has to explain how her DNA ended up on those stamps. Her story is that the stamps fell off the letters while she was handling the evidence alone in her classroom, and she had to lick them to reattach them. It's a strange explanation, but not impossible. Maybe she panicked when she saw the stamps coming loose. Maybe she wasn't thinking clearly. Maybe she was just trying to preserve evidence. Dr. Lichtenwallner destroys this explanation with scientific precision and decades of expertise. She testifies that she's been analyzing stamps professionally for 20 years. She's examined thousands of pieces of postal evidence. She can tell the difference between a stamp that's been licked once and one that's been licked twice. She can identify glue stick residue versus saliva. She can detect secondary application patterns, the distinctive marks left when someone tries to reattach a stamp that's fallen off. These patterns are microscopic but unmistakable to someone with her training and experience. The threatening letter stamps show none of that. No glue stick residue, no evidence of reattachment, no secondary application patterns. The stamps were licked once, when they were originally placed on the envelopes. The jury watches Joanne's face as this testimony unfolds. They see something crumble behind her eyes. The performance ends. The mask falls. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returns a verdict. Not guilty on all counts for Paula Nawrocki. Paula walks out of that courtroom a free woman. In the hallway, jurors actually hug her. They apologize for what she went through. They tell her they're sorry they ever doubted her. Joanne Chambers walks out alone. Paula Nawrocki sues everyone involved in her arrest and prosecution. And honestly, can you blame her? The school district, the police chief, Joanne Chambers herself. She's lost 18 months of her career. She was suspended without pay while under investigation, meaning her family had no income during the worst period of their lives. Her reputation was destroyed. Her name was in newspapers across Pennsylvania, associated with heinous threats and harassment. Her life was turned completely upside down. Friends stopped calling. Parents whispered when she walked by. She became a pariah in her own community. The school district settles for $600,000. Joanne Chambers settles for $25,000. Joanne's lawyer claims she only settled to avoid legal costs. Not because she admitted guilt, but that explanation rings pretty hollow given the DNA evidence that proved she licked those stamps. Police Chief Flugel refuses to settle and takes his case to trial instead. He wins. The court rules that based on the evidence available at the time, the failed polygraph, the Colonel Klink reference, the suspicious behavior with the coffee cup, Flugel had reasonable cause to pursue Paula as a suspect. He was doing his job based on the information he had. How could he have known that the victim was actually the perpetrator? Paula is eventually reinstated as a teacher in March 1997. She returns to work at the school district, though not to Cool Ball Learning Center. Can you imagine how awkward that would be? But what about Joanne Chambers? What happens to the woman who terrorized herself for over 18 months? Who sent herself death threats? Who put feces on her own chair? Who staged an elaborate campaign to frame an innocent colleague? Here's where the story gets even stranger. Despite the DNA evidence, despite being exposed as the actual perpetrator, despite settling a lawsuit for $25,000, Joanne Chambers maintained her innocence. She never admitted to sending those letters, never explained why her DNA was on the stamps, never apologized to Paula Nawrocki for nearly destroying her life. And somehow, incredibly, she continued working as a teacher. The Pocono Mountain School District didn't fire her after the trial. She transferred to a different school in the district and kept teaching. In fact, she went back to school herself and earned a doctorate in education from the University of Pennsylvania. She became a National Board Certified Reading Specialist and worked as a Wilson Reading Trainer, a prestigious position teaching other teachers how to help dyslexic children. Think about that. A woman whose DNA proved she terrorized herself and framed a colleague for crimes she didn't commit went on to become a doctor of education. She was training other teachers. In 2015, nearly 20 years after the trial, Joanne applied for a position as a Wilson reading specialist at the Hazleton Area School District. The Pennsylvania Wilson program highly recommended her. She had excellent credentials on paper. The school board was ready to approve her hiring. Then parents in the district found out about her past. They researched her name online and discovered the old case. They found news articles, court records. They contacted school board members. At the board meeting where Joanne's hiring was to be approved, Superintendent Craig Butler made an announcement. "This matter is tabled for the time being." The hiring never went through. Parents in that community weren't willing to have someone with Joanne's history teaching their children, credentials or not. But Joanne continued working in education until her retirement. She remained employed by the Pocono Mountain School District as a reading specialist. She was a member of the Pocono Mountain Education Association and the Pennsylvania State Education Association. On paper, she had a successful, respectable career. On November 1st, 2024, Joanne Chambers passed away at age 76 at a hospice facility in Pennsylvania. Her obituary reads like any other educator's obituary. No mention of the scandal, no reference to the trial, just a list of her academic achievements and teaching positions. It mentions her doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania, her National Board certification, her work as a principal at Lordsmont School, and as a teacher in the Pocono Mountain School District. Her husband had passed away the previous year. She's survived by a son and extended family. The obituary thanks the hospice staff for their compassionate care. And nowhere in that obituary, nowhere in her official records, nowhere in her professional biography, does it mention Paula Nawrocki or the 18 months of psychological terrorism. The Joanne Chambers case raises questions that still don't have satisfying answers. Why would someone terrorize themselves? Why would anyone create an elaborate, months-long campaign of self-harassment? Psychologists have theories. Munchausen syndrome, a condition where people fake illness or trauma to get attention and sympathy. Narcissistic personality disorder, an overwhelming need to be the center of attention, even if that attention comes from victimhood. Factitious disorder, compulsively creating false narratives and scenarios. But theories don't really explain the specifics. They don't explain why Joanne chose Paula as her target. They don't explain the timing. They don't explain how someone could put feces on their own chair, touch it with their own hands, and maintain that level of deception. What we do know is this: Paula Nawrocki came terrifyingly close to going to prison for crimes she didn't commit. If not for DNA testing, which was still relatively new in 1993, she probably would have been convicted. The failed polygraph, the Colonel Klink reference, the suspicious behavior with the coffee cup, the road rage incident that Joanne claimed to have witnessed. All of it would have been enough to convince a jury. One juror admitted to Dateline NBC that before the DNA evidence was presented, they were ready to convict Paula. The letters seemed real. The fear seemed real. The victim seemed real. That's what makes this case so chilling. Joanne Chambers was convincing. She wasn't some obvious faker. She was a beloved teacher, someone people trusted, someone they wanted to help and protect. When she said she was being terrorized, everyone believed her. Because why wouldn't they? The technology that saved Paula Nawrocki, in our DNA analysis, was the same breakthrough technology that was revolutionizing criminal justice in the 1990s. Just a few years earlier, DNA had caught the Narborough murderer in England. It was being used to solve cold cases and free innocent prisoners across America. And in Coolbaugh, Pennsylvania, it exposed something nobody expected. The victim was the villain. DNA doesn't lie, people do. The case is a reminder that sometimes the most convincing performance comes from someone who's living their own twisted reality. That the line between victim and perpetrator isn't always clear. That the person asking for help might be the person who needs it most, just not for the reasons they're claiming. Paula Nawrocki lost 18 months of her life, her reputation, and her peace of mind. She was arrested, charged with over 100 crimes, and came within a hair's breadth of imprisonment, all because a colleague decided to cast her as the villain in an elaborate piece of theater. And Joanne Chambers? She went back to teaching. She got her doctorate. She trained other teachers. She lived her life as if the trial never happened, as if the DNA evidence never existed, as if Paula Nawrocki's nightmare was just an unfortunate misunderstanding. Until her death in November 2024, Joanne never admitted to sending those letters, never explained the DNA match, never apologized. She took the truth, or her version of it, to her grave. The threatening letters still exist somewhere in evidence storage. The DNA results are still in laboratory files. The court transcripts still document everything that happened. But the one person who could explain why she did it, why she chose Paula, why she maintained the deception even after being exposed, is gone. Some mysteries get solved, but never really explained. Some questions have answers that don't satisfy. Some truths are stranger than any fiction writer would dare imagine. A first-grade teacher terrorized herself for 18 months. She framed an innocent colleague. She touched feces with her own hands. She sent herself death threats. She created a Barbie doll with a slashed throat. She reported a road rage incident that never happened. And then she went back to teaching young children in Pennsylvania classrooms. Think about that the next time you assume you actually know who the victim is. The Joanne Chambers case isn't just about false accusations or DNA evidence. It's about how convincing lies can be when the liar believes them. How easy it is to cast someone as a villain. How close we all came to letting an innocent woman go to prison while the real perpetrator got sympathy and support. In the end, science saved Paula Nawrocki. But it couldn't answer the question everyone still wants to know. Why did Joanne Chambers do it? Maybe she believed her own story. Maybe she needed to be the victim so badly that she created an entire reality where she was. Maybe there's a darkness inside some people that we'll never fully understand. Or maybe the simplest explanation is the truest one. Sometimes the person asking for help is the one you should fear most. The DNA proved who licked those stamps. But it couldn't reveal what was going on inside Joanne Chambers' mind. And now we'll never know.